Welcome to the Rewild Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Jill Mokes. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. I don't know where you are on our little planet, but here in the UK, it is hot. We do not do well with the heat. So I want to kick off this episode by just apologising if the quality of sound on this episode isn't quite as high as you're used to. It's because I've had to leave doors open, windows open. So I hope you'll forgive if there is a little bit of compromised sound quality. Anyway, this is a special episode, which means it's layer 7 of the natural order of things. This is the final episode in our mini-series, which is based on my book, The Natural Order of Things. I'll pop a link to that in the show notes. You can get it absolutely free. I do not gatekeep this book because it is so important. It's so foundational to building a successful business. It's all about doing the right work in the right order. So, final layer. This week we are talking about deep transformation. And this really is the culmination of everything that's come before it. So you started off with inner knowing, really getting clear on your vision, really tuning into your intuition, learning to trust yourself, understanding how your identity is always evolving and how your business and the vision you have for your business will too. And then we moved on to truest expression. This is your personal brand at its most elemental level. This was all about understanding your values. What makes you tick? What's your story? What's the story, the lived and learned experience that's brought you to where you are today? Because really being able to articulate those things and create a brand that really represents the fullest, most authentic expression of who you truly are is absolutely fundamental for everything that you're going to build on top of that for your business. And once that layer is solid, we started talking about soul work. What are the offers that are unique to you? What are the offers that only you can create because you have that true expression of your personal brand? You understand who you are, what you're here to do, who you're here to serve. What are the offers that only you could create? And then we moved on to kind of how do we, once we know what those offers are, how do we go around putting them out into the world? How do we get clients enrolling in those offers, signing up for our one-to-one programs, raising their hand to work with us? And that started off with getting clear on our worldview. So this is, what is your thought leadership? What are your strong opinions? What matters to you? What do you put a stake in the ground and not compromise on? What are the topics you keep coming back to time and time again? That was the worldview layer. And once we had that clear, then we went on to speaking up. The marketing layer, the piece that often people kind of get to far too early before they've done all those other layers of work. But once we did get to that layer, that speaking up layer, then it was all about, okay, what are the strategies that feel right to you? What is the marketing ecosystem that for you is going to be sustainable? What's the right balance between content marketing and relationship marketing? So that was that layer. Once you're clear on that and you've suddenly got people raising their hand, you're building your email list and you have an audience of people that you can actually put your offers in front of, then we reframed selling. We took it from selling, something no one really wants to do, that word is ugh, and we transformed that word into honest invitation, because that's all that is asked of you. Once all of the previous layers are in place, all that you need to do is make honest invitations to people and then trust them to make the decision that's right for them. So that was last week's episode. So if you've missed any of those previous 6 episodes of this mini-series, I urge you to go back and listen to them, because there really is a sequence to this work, and it's the sequence, it's the order of work that really matters. And now we've come to the final layer, which is deep transformation. And I think that this layer is the one that really represents the character of your business. So that's what we're diving into today, and we're going to go deep on this one. Let's dive into the episode. Welcome to Rewild Your Business, the podcast for women doing the work their soul intended. I'm Jill Mokes. I'm an international business coach, and I'm a guide for women doing the work that matters. Rewilding your business means cutting away what doesn't belong to allow what does to thrive, finding simplicity in your work. And it's about bringing the whole of who you are to the table, whether you're building something new or finding your way back to what really matters to you. I'm so glad you're here. So why does this represent the character of your business? What do I mean by that? Well, what I'm saying is that, let's face it, anyone can make a promise. You can craft a compelling offer. You can write a beautiful sales page. You can even have really warm and genuine sales conversations. But the question is, and this is the question that actually determines the future of your business, what happens after someone says yes to you? What do they actually experience? How do you actually show up? And what do they actually walk away with? So that's what this layer is about. And I want to start with a reframe that I think changes a lot about how we approach client delivery. And here's the thing, your job isn't to teach or coach or guide or facilitate, deliver content, run sessions, provide resources, although you may do all of those things. But actually your job when it comes to transformation really is to hold space for the other person as they do the work to transform themselves. And you know, I don't use holding space lightly. It's a word that I think coaches really overuse. But for this episode, it's really important that you understand that holding space for your client as they transform themselves, that is your work, that is your job. And I think it's easy to forget sometimes because of the way we talk about what we do. We talk about transformation a lot. It's easy to forget that we cannot transform someone else. What we can do is create the conditions for transformation. We can hold a container that is safe enough, that is challenging enough, that's been carefully enough designed so that the person inside it can do what only they can do. And that is, the deep, personal, sometimes uncomfortable work of whatever your area of coaching or guiding is. That's what you're offering. It's not the information, it's not the program, it's not the framework, however good those things are, however good and important actually those things are. Your offer, what you're really giving the client is the experience of being truly held while they do the really hard and most important part. And when you see your role that way as the holder of the space rather than the deliverer of the content or the deliverer of the coaching or the deliverer of the teaching, then I think that the whole kind of way you feel about your work shifts. And you'll stop asking yourself, like, what do I need to teach this week? What do I need to coach around this week? And instead, you're going to start asking a much more important question, which is, what does this person need right now from me to take the next step in their transformation? And this is where you'll probably heard me use the word or the phrase co-created a lot. This is where that co-creation comes into its own. The transformation is co-created. You hold the space, you design the container, you create the conditions. You give them a deeply personalized, really responsive way of working so that they can then do the work that they do, their part, in actually transforming themselves. And that's the difference between a client experience that is okay, that is, delivering on what you said you do, and a client experience that is genuinely transformational. I think, the difference between a good client experience and a really transformational one, is it's not about the program that you've designed. It's not about your framework necessarily. It's not about the number of calls you give a client or the quality of your books and that kind of thing. It's always about how you make them feel. That doesn't mean that those things aren't important and that they don't contribute to your client's experience. But the thing that people remember, think about the Maya Angelou quote, they remember how you make them feel. So if you just think back about some of maybe the teachers, mentors, coaches that you've worked with who have genuinely changed something for you, right? What do you remember about them? I bet it isn't necessarily how many calls you had or what you covered off in each call. You're going to remember how you felt in their presence. You'll remember feeling really seen by them, feeling that you mattered, that you had their complete attention, that they were fully present with you and your specific situation. You'll remember whether you felt safe enough to be honest and whether you felt challenged enough by them to actually grow, to get to where you wanted to be. So those feelings are what you are responsible for creating in your client. And actually, you know what? It's not always the big things. It's not always the big grand gestures. It's often the accumulation of the smaller stuff. It's always the small stuff, isn't it? You know, when it comes to an experience, it's always the small things. Think about an event. It's always the little touches that actually leave us with an overall feeling of, wow, that was incredible, right? You know, the small stuff does matter. Small stuff has big impact. And it's really important that you don't underdeliver on the small stuff, on the client experience, the stuff that leaves them with a particular feeling. Some of the things that come to my mind, things like timekeeping, for example. Start when you said you would, finish when you said you would, respond when you said you would. When you do that, it really communicates to your client that you respect them, that their time matters to you. And it's also, you know, it's that indicator that you can be trusted to do what you said you were going to do. I think another thing that is often neglected in client delivery is boundaries. And I mean your boundaries and their boundaries. So really holding the container that you've created clearly, consistently. And I don't mean being super rigid and inflexible, but really because clarity around what the client can expect from you really creates safety for them. If you lack clear boundaries, it doesn't make the space that you're holding for your client feel nourishing. It actually makes it quite anxious. So I think that's really important. Keeping your promises. If you say you're going to send something to your client, if you're going to look into something and get back to them, if you tell them you're going to be thinking about them this week, keep those promises, their commitments, and do that consistently. And try and not ever have to be reminded. Those things really build trust. And I think probably the biggest one is being fully present. If I had to say one thing that will create a transformational container for your client, that will really create the conditions for them to transform themselves, it is you being fully present with them. So not half present because you're actually thinking about the next client that you've got to see and you're thinking about the fact that you haven't sent them a reminder or you're thinking about an invoice that you forgot to send. Really taking the time to prepare for each client's session. And by preparing for the session, I mean doing whatever you need to do. So I certainly have a little ritual that I perform before every coaching session that I do. And it's very simple and it's a couple of minutes, but it totally just grounds me into this moment, this client. What does this client need from me at the moment? And just doing something as simple as that, taking a few minutes to sit in silence and really just bring yourself into presence for that client can be the difference between giving the client a feeling of being fully present for them and not. And I think really that whole client first philosophy, that real genuine belief that this person's growth, this person's experience, this person's transformation is the whole point of what you do. Your methodology is not the point. Your framework's not the point. Your schedule's not the point. Your preferences, your comfort, all of those things are not the point. And I'm not talking about being a martyr. That's not what this is about. It's about respecting your own professionalism. And honestly, I feel like that respect is almost wholly made up of those small things that are done really consistently with care all the time. Having those things as just the way you work and not compromising on them. Just be the person who wouldn't dream of not carving out time before a client session to properly ground into that moment. I think it's worth talking for a moment as well about how the most transformational client experiences that I've witnessed or been part of, and that includes my own, they're never one size fits all. You know, I mentioned before this co-creation. We know, if you're a coach like me, you know our work is client-led. And that's so important. What does this specific person need at this specific moment? Rather than marching through a curriculum or a framework, regardless of what's actually going on for that human in front of you, I think it's so important to retain that bit of flexibility, that co-creative approach to your work. Because your client isn't some kind of like doll that is just going to absorb your wisdom, right? They're an active participant. In fact, they are the person who is creating their own transformation. So they have to be invited into the experience. They've got to be built into the design of the work. That's why the co-creation part is so important. How often do you ask your clients what they need on this day, in this moment on this day? I think we can get too fixed on our programs, our frameworks, our own philosophies. And it's really not doing the client a service if you are not constantly bringing it back to them, genuinely noticing what lights that client up, what lands flat with them, genuinely following their energy. And thinking back actually to layer 1, where we talked about trusting your intuition. This is a place where this really matters. Trust your intuition about where the real work is happening with your client, even if it's not where you thought or planned it was going to happen, right? And make sure that your client knows how deeply you're invested in their transformation. Tell them. Sometimes we think those things are going to be obvious to our clients. But actually, I think there's something really special in just taking a moment to say to your client, this means so much to me that you get what you need from this experience. Tell me, what can I do to take this deeper? What can I do to make you feel or help you feel safer? Asking those kind of questions is so powerful, and it really contributes to creating the conditions that the client needs to transform. I want to just touch now on what the goal is of this layer of the work, because I know what the goal is for your clients. The goal for your client is that they get the transformation that they invested in when they raise their hand to work with you. That is the number one most important thing. But there is a goal for you too, because we want your clients to get so much from working with you. We want them to feel so genuinely held, so transformed, that 3 things happen really naturally. 1, they stay. We want that client to say, how can I carry on working with you? What's next? What are we going to do next together? That's really important. What is the next thing that you could help them with? And another goal is for them to come back. So maybe there isn't an immediate next thing, But we want them to know that whenever they're ready for a next level of transformation, or when they're ready to tackle another aspect of their growth, we want them to be coming back to you. Do you know, more clients that I work with come back and work with me a second time, third time, fourth time than don't. And I think it's because it's so important. The transformation that they get is so important to me. I'm just thinking as I'm saying this, I'm just thinking back and thinking, yeah, the clients that come back, they come back because they trust me. They know how I work. They know how they felt when they work with me. And the third thing that we want to happen so naturally is we want those clients referring you to other people. Referrals are the lifeblood of our businesses. It's that relationships over algorithms again. And we want them to refer you, not only because you've built some kind of referral program or incentivize them somehow. We want them to do it so naturally because the experience they had was so real, so good, so beyond what they had expected that they just can't help talking about it to other people, right? That is the most powerful marketing you will ever have. Other people speaking up on your behalf, other people telling people how genuinely transformed they were by your work. That carries a weight and a credibility that just no paid ad or even, organic lead gen funnel or social media strategy could ever have. And this is where this framework, this natural order of things becomes self-sustaining, because exceptional client delivery feeds back into every layer that came before it. It grows your confidence. Every time a client experiences a real shift, every time you witness what happens when you've held space with that full level of presence and genuine care, your belief in your own work gets deeper. Your self-worth grows. Your confidence in putting yourself forward, making the offers, charging what you're worth, all of those things that came before are nourished by the direct experience of knowing without any doubt, because your clients are telling you, that your work changes things. It literally fuels your bravery. And remember how we talked about this in layer 1, courage is a muscle. And nothing builds that muscle faster than evidence, cold hard evidence that you can do this, that the work you do is exceptionally good, that real people are being genuinely served by what you do. And this layer, this deep transformation layer, creates your best marketing assets. Testimonials that are really specific and emotional and true are just the best marketing assets you will ever have. As I'm saying that, I don't do this enough myself. I'm reminding myself as I'm talking through this, I should share way more testimonials than I do, because they are just incredible marketing assets. When someone describes exactly what shifted for them when they work with you and why, and those are worth more than any piece of content you've written could ever be worth. They're proof in someone else's words of what is possible inside the work you do. And it drives your offer development. Thinking about that soul work layer. When you're this close to your clients, when you're really paying attention, when you are being co-creative and you're responsive and present, you learn things about those clients and what they need that you couldn't really learn any other way, actually. So you learn what they needed. Maybe the container that you built didn't quite give them. And you develop it and you change it and you tweak it. And you learn about what exceeded their expectations. What is something that you could have gone deeper on that you didn't even realize would be as important as it was? And that intelligence, that information, that shapes your next offer. It helps hone your messaging. And all of this basically is what lets your business be sustainable. How often do we talk about, I help you build a business that is profitable and sustainable? This is where the rubber meets the road on this. This is what actually helps you make money in a sustainable way. Every single one of these 7 layers contribute to that sustainability. And honestly, this layer in particular, a business that's built on really exceptional client outcomes, that is a business that does not have to constantly be finding new clients over and over from scratch. It's a business that's going to grow through that natural loyalty, natural advocacy of the people that are already inside your world. And you can see, even just through those words, you can see how much more sustainable that business is and how much easier for you that kind of business is to run. So what does solid look like at this layer? So when this layer is genuinely working, when you are really getting deep transformations with your clients, you are going to feel this in your whole business. So first of all, your clients are getting the results they want, like real, meaningful results. And they're getting the kind of results that kind of continue to unfold after they've worked with you. Because real transformation, it keeps deepening, it keeps developing after. Your clients are feeling deeply cared for. You know, not just, yeah, she'll deliver what she said she was going to do. Meh. They're feeling like you really care. I think there's a big difference between that, you know. The difference between doing what you said you do and genuinely caring. The first one is very professional. It is, of course, professional. You must do what you said you were going to do. But the other is so deeply human. And both those two things matter so much. And both of them are your responsibility, right? And when this layer is solid, you are getting referrals without even asking for them. People are talking about you and saying, oh, you need to go to Jill. When I worked with her, here's what happened for me. Because people do that. When they've had an amazing experience, they want the people that they care about to have access to that experience. And another thing that happens when this layer is really solid is that you feel so proud of your work. Not just satisfied, it's not just feeling fulfilled by your work. It's feeling really proud of it. I don't think it's a bad word. I don't think there's anything wrong with feeling pride in knowing that you showed up. You fully showed up and delivered really honestly and made a real difference to someone. And honestly, at this level, this is where you start feeling everything clicking into place. So many people that come to me have never really known what it's like for their whole business to make sense, for their whole business to click into place, each layer feeding the next. And that's what I want for you. I want you in a place where your inner knowing is really guiding you well. I want your truest expression to mean that your brand is landing with the people you want it to land with. They're becoming your people. I want your soul work to be so fulfilling, the best offers that you could possibly put out into the world. I want your worldview to be resonating with the people you want it to resonate with. I want your speaking up layer, your marketing to be reaching the right people. And I want it to be having the right effect. I want the right people to be raising their hand. I want you to be nurturing the right people. And then I want you to be having your honest invitation conversations with the right people so that those right people are saying yes to you consistently. And then layer 7, this deep transformation, this is where all of that, the results of all of that become visibly true. It all manifests into the business that you wanted when you talked about that vision in the first place. Oh, we've come a long way in this series, haven't we? When I first sort of wrote the book, Natural Order of Things, and which honestly, the book is simply the summing up of the framework that I've been using with clients for years. I mean, it's just me capturing it in a certain number of pages, but it's really the framework I've used for a long time. I've called it different things. I used to call it the Mokes method, which I still the Mokes method. But when I first wrote it, and then I thought, oh, you know what, I'll just do a episode of the podcast for each layer. I didn't realize it would be quite satisfying for me to really be able to just talk through each layer. And it's so validating when you're talking through a framework that you believe in so much, and then it lands so well with the people who are listening to it or reading it. That feels incredibly fulfilling. and validating. Yeah, it is validating. It's like, not just me then, not just me having this crazy idea that this is important. It's no, this is important. And thank goodness that I did capture it. Thank goodness I did put it into this mini series so that you could, in your own time, work through those 7 layers. The whole framework really is based, not just on the framework I use with my clients. It's actually what I've done, what I've worked through over the years to get my business to where it is now. So nothing in this is made up. All of it. And probably that's why it makes so much logical sense. And for someone that really works with soul-led women, I think it's the perfect combination of strategy and soul. It's really weaving in the spiritual, weaving in the intuition, the knowing, the soul-led way of working, but doing it in a way, in an order that is so logical, that makes so much sense. And that's what the natural order of things makes possible. And I don't mean, immediately. I don't mean without doing the work. I don't mean without the courage to be honest about where you are in each layer and doing the work you have to get each layer to the place where it is solid. But with time and intention and that willingness to do the right work in the right order, then all of that is possible for you. A sustainable, profitable business where you don't feel like every day you're reinventing the wheel or having to, start with a blank sheet of paper. And my hope for this series is that it's really given you a map that you can follow, a blueprint, whatever you like to call it, so that you can do your work, your unique work, the work that matters most to you, but with a framework that you can kind of trust, a process you can trust. As always, there is a link in the show notes to the book where you can get the whole 7 layers and all of the different prompts. There's also a link to download the prompts for this session, for this layer, this episode. And if you would like my support to do this work together in community, really held and supported with other women that are building in the same way, then the Wild Way, my membership, is where that happens. We get together a couple of times a month. We meet at new moon and full moon. We set intentions. We reflect and refine and have conversations about what's working, what isn't working, what needs to change. It really is a place where strategy and soul come together. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, I would love you to join me inside the Wild Way. I'll put the link in the show notes, of course. Doesn't matter what time of the month it is, you just sign up and you just join us in person at the next moon circle. And that's how we work. We work in rhythm with the moon cycles and with the turning of the wheel of the year. So we got together last week at summer solstice and had a special circle for summer solstice. So if that feels like your kind of thing, if you would like that natural rhythm to get baked into your business so that you can do this natural order of things work in a rhythm and in a container that's really going to hold you for it, come and join us. The link's in the show notes. Love to have you on the inside. Okay. Until next week, where we will be moving beyond the natural order of things, back to business as usual on the podcast for episode 218. But until then, I hope you have a wonderful week and I hope you've enjoyed this mini-series. Bye for now.